Jasmine stood before the mirror, carefully smoothing out the creases of her dress. The delicate ivory dress hugged her figure gently, accentuating her elegant beauty without being overly ostentatious. She chose this dress because it gave her a feeling of comfort. Not too extravagant, yet still sufficiently formal for a wedding anniversary evening. The large mirror reflected the image of a gentle woman, but if one looked closer, in those warm brown eyes, there was a trace of worry that could not be hidden. She smiled at herself, a soft smile that nonetheless failed to ease the restlessness in her heart. 3 years ago, on this very day, she and Ryan had stood together, exchanging vows before the witness of family and friends. At that time, they were a couple full of love and hope. But 3 years had passed, and married life had brought not only romantic moments, but also challenges, small, silent cracks that had gradually made everything less perfect than it once was. Ryan had recently lost his job. This was not simply about losing a position. It was also a loss of the self-esteem of a man. He had once been the one who carried the weight of the family, proud of his career. But now, as Jasmine became the sole provider for their home, he felt like a failure. This was not Jasmine's fault. She always tried to encourage her husband, to make him feel that this did not matter, that they were a team, that she believed in him. But to Ryan, Jasmine's help did not feel like love. It felt like an unspoken humiliation. He could not bear the thought of becoming dependent on his wife. Jasmine had no idea that these thoughts were tormenting Ryan's mind. She only thought that this was a difficult time, that if she loved him enough, if she did everything perfectly, they could overcome this phase. That was why she had spent the entire day preparing for this special evening. She had made a reservation at the restaurant where they had once gone on their first date. She remembered very clearly the moment when Ryan looked at her with eyes full of love, took her hand, and spoke about the future. Back then, everything was so bright and brilliant. And tonight, she wanted to recreate that moment once again. She wanted Ryan to feel loved, to feel that no matter what happened, they would always be together. But Jasmine did not know that a storm was waiting for her. Ryan sat on the sofa in the living room, his eyes fixed on the phone screen, though he wasn't really reading anything. His mind was in turmoil. His wounded pride had reached an unbearable level. He knew that Jasmine was preparing so much for tonight. He knew she was trying to make everything perfect, but that very effort only made him feel even worse. He recalled the moment he received the termination notice from his company. It was a huge shock for him. For years, he had devoted himself completely to his work, but when the company encountered difficulties, he was one of those who were cut. When he returned home that day, he had tried to remain calm, but when he saw the worried look in Jasmine's eyes, he could not contain the feeling of disgrace. She had held him, saying that everything would be all right, that she would take care of the family while he searched for a new opportunity. Those words should have comforted him, but instead, they only sank him deeper into a sense of powerlessness. Now, seeing Jasmine so meticulously preparing for tonight, he felt as if his heart was being torn apart. He did not want to receive pity from his wife. He wanted to be the man who could worry for her, who could take her to luxurious restaurants without having to worry about money. But now, it was Jasmine who was doing that. He felt small, useless. Jasmine stepped out from the bedroom, her long hair softly curled, her lips curving into a gentle smile as she saw her husband. She walked over to him, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. "Ryan, are you ready? We're going to have a wonderful evening." Ryan looked up at her. For a moment, he only wanted to hold her, to forget all the pain in his heart, but his wounded pride prevented him from doing so. He simply nodded, unable to smile. Jasmine noticed the coldness in his eyes, but she tried not to let it affect her mood. She believed that once they arrived at the restaurant, once they had time together, everything would be all right. But she was mistaken. When they arrived at the restaurant, Jasmine cheerfully chose a table, but Ryan said little. He simply sat down, his eyes avoiding hers. The waiter came and Jasmine excitedly ordered, trying to evoke fond memories. Do you remember the first time we came here? You ordered the steak, and then you said it was the best steak you'd ever eaten. Ryan nodded, yet inside a bitter feeling surged. Back then, he was a successful, confident man. But now, who was he? Jasmine noticed Ryan's silence. She placed her hand over his, her eyes gentle. Ryan, I know it's been very hard for you lately, but I want you to understand that I don't care about that. I love you, not because of how much money you make or what job you have. I love you for who you are. Ryan jerked his hand away, feeling as though Jasmine had just confirmed what he had always feared, that she was pitying him. Anger welled up inside him, but he tried to remain calm. Jasmine, you don't understand. Do you really think you can fix everything just by doing this? Do you think that just by loving me, everything will be all right? Jasmine was stunned. She had not expected this reaction. Ryan, I just want to help you. I don't need your help, Ryan snapped, his eyes flashing with long-suppressed anger. I don't want to be a burden to you. I'm your husband. I'm supposed to be the one protecting you, worrying for you, not the one you have to support. Jasmine's eyes widened as she looked at Ryan, feeling her heart tighten. She had never seen him like this before. She knew he was hurting, but she never thought he would feel so deeply insulted. Ryan, I have never thought of you as a burden, but I feel that way. Ryan stood up, his eyes reddened from suppressed emotion. I can't go on like this. Jasmine, I can't watch you do everything while I just sit here. Tears welled in Jasmine's eyes. She didn't know what to say to soothe him. All she knew was that the evening she had planned to be perfect had turned into an emotional storm, and that was only the beginning. The luxurious restaurant was bathed in warm, golden light, with flickering candles reflecting on the meticulously arranged dinner tables. The delicate aroma of fine wine blended with the scent of delicious food served on exquisite porcelain, creating a perfect setting for a romantic evening. Jasmine had spent the entire week planning this 3-year wedding anniversary dinner, hoping that no matter how tense things had become, at least they could share a warm moment together. Ryan sat across from her, dressed in a neatly pressed dark suit, his hair tidy but his eyes filled with unspeakable sorrow. He was trying to appear comfortable, to blend into the atmosphere that his wife had so diligently prepared, but inside he could not quell the growing discomfort. Every candle's reflection in his wine glass felt like a heavy burden. Every clink of the waiter pouring wine reminded him of his current position, a man who had lost his job, sitting in an expensive restaurant with his wife paying for their anniversary dinner. Jasmine tried to make conversation, keeping the mood light and gentle as she always did. She talked about an interesting client she had met that day, about a new project she had just finished, but Ryan only responded with quiet nods. Ryan wasn't intentionally distancing himself. He knew his wife was trying. He knew she still loved him, but his wounded pride was too heavy for him to engage in conversation naturally. His mind kept circling around the numbers. The appetizer, $70. The main course, $140. 2 glasses of wine, $90. Dessert, $50. Total, over $350 for one dinner. Ryan couldn't help but look down at the plate of food before him. His heart weighed down. He remembered the time when he still had a job, when such dinners were not a big deal, when he could pull out a chair for his wife, order without hesitation, and when the bill was placed on the table, he would have taken it without a second thought. But now, everything was different. When the polite waiter placed the bill in a small folder on the table, Jasmine immediately reached out and took it. It was such an automatic habit that she didn't even think twice. Immediately, Ryan felt a surge of indignation. He did not explode right away, but he gripped the wine glass tightly, his eyes darkening, his breath slowed, growing heavier. Did she really do that? Does she really think this is normal? His voice, though soft, was sharp as a knife cutting through the fragile distance between them. Will you really do this again? Jasmine looked up, surprised by her husband's reaction. She did not understand. She had simply done what she always did, pay for the meal, as she had so many times before. She answered gently, trying not to let the atmosphere turn tense. Ryan, it's just dinner. I just want what? Ryan interrupted, his voice dry but laden with indescribable exasperation. Want to remind me that I can't take care of our family anymore? She fell silent. In that moment, she understood. It wasn't about the dinner. It wasn't about the bill. It was about the loss within Ryan. The loss did not come from money. but from the awareness of who he truly was. Ryan felt as though he had lost his place in this marriage. When he was working, he always felt that he was the one who could take care of Jasmine, the one who could shoulder everything. But now, he was merely a man sitting in an expensive restaurant, unable to pay for his own dinner. That bitterness erupted in his chest. Jasmine placed the bill on the table, looking at her husband with tender eyes, but that only made Ryan feel even worse. He did not need pity. He did not need help that made him feel like a failure. "You don't mean that," she said softly, but Ryan only gave a bitter smile. But that is exactly what is happening. The atmosphere between them grew so tense that the diners at nearby tables began to take notice. Ryan felt his pride shattering bit by bit as he saw the worried look in his wife's eyes. He did not want Jasmine to see him like this. Jasmine lowered her voice, trying to pull Ryan back to her. "Ryan, I don't care who pays. We are husband and wife. This is not about money. It's about the fact that we are still together." Ryan closed his eyes, took a deep breath, trying to control the rising emotions. But he could not. Why could Jasmine treat this as if it were normal? Why could she so easily say that money doesn't matter when it was gnawing away at his pride every day? He did not want to be the man his wife had to worry about. He wanted to be the man who could pull out a chair for her, who could order for her, who could pay for the meal without a second thought. He did not want to sit there and watch his wife reach for the bill as if it were something obvious. "You just don't understand," he said, his voice low yet full of pressure. Jasmine blinked, leaning slightly forward. "Then please, help me understand." Ryan sneered and shook his head. "Even if I explain, you will never understand." The pain in his words made Jasmine clench her hands tighter. She wanted to tell him that he did not have to feel this way. She wanted to say that a job does not define a person's worth, but she knew that at that moment, anything she said would only make him feel worse. Both sat in silence, no one touching their food anymore. The dessert on the table had grown cold. The candles continued to dance, but between them lay an ever-widening invisible gap. Ryan said nothing further. He only stared down at the table, his eyes distant, as if he were battling himself. Jasmine knew that no matter what she said now, she couldn't soothe the pain in her husband's heart. She could only wait and hope that one day he would let her back into his world once again. The luxurious restaurant was radiant with lights, its sparkling crystal chandeliers casting warm golden light into every meticulously arranged corner of the tables. Soft piano melodies drifted from afar, blending with the gentle laughter of diners, creating an atmosphere that was both elegant and cozy. Jasmine subtly clenched her hands on her lap, feeling the coolness of the glass table beneath her trembling fingertips. Before her, Ryan sat with dark, brooding eyes, his jaw set tightly, and his fingers unconsciously drumming a tense rhythm on the table. Jasmine had never seen her husband like this. Something was smoldering within him, a fury that could no longer be hidden. Swallowing the lump in her throat, she tried to keep her voice as gentle as possible. "Ryan, today is our anniversary. Please, don't let other things ruin this evening, okay?" But her words fell like a drop of water into a sea of fire. Ryan let out a bitter laugh, his eyes laced with mockery. "Other things," he emphasized those two words, his low voice carrying a brewing storm. "Do you really think this is just other things, Jasmine?" She bit her lower lip softly, her hand instinctively tightening around the napkin on her lap. Nearby diners began to glance over, sensing the tension that had enveloped the couple's table. "Ryan, you're drawing everyone's attention," Jasmine said softly, her eyes darting around. She only wanted to preserve his dignity, to keep things from going too far. But that only infuriated Ryan further. "Oh, so now you care more about what others think than your husband?" Ryan scoffed coldly, leaning forward. The pressure in his gaze made Jasmine feel suffocated. "It's not that, she began. "You just want to protect your fake honor, don't you?" Ryan interrupted, his voice rising with each word. A few waitstaff exchanged worried glances, and some even left to find a manager. Jasmine could feel her heart pounding. Ryan had never behaved like this before. He had once been patient and warm, always putting her first. But now, before her was a stranger, a man whose eyes revealed deep-seated pain mixed with indignation. "Ryan, please calm down." She reached out toward him, but Ryan jerked his hand away, as if even a touch from her could scorch the last remnants of his pride. "Calm down," he laughed. "Do you know what you've done?" "Jasmine?" His voice boomed so loudly that nearly the entire restaurant fell silent. All eyes were now fixed on them. But Ryan didn't care. Perhaps he even wanted them to watch. Jasmine's breath quickened. "Ryan, if something is making you angry, can we talk about it later?" "Later?" Ryan repeated with a bitter laugh. "Everything has gone too far for later, Jasmine." Then something no one expected happened. Ryan grabbed the anniversary cake from the table. A delicate cake with smooth, white frosting that Jasmine had specially ordered from their favorite bakery. In one swift moment, before Jasmine could even react, the cake flew directly toward her. The entire restaurant was stunned. The soft frosting burst apart mid-air, splattering over Jasmine's face and her elegant dress. A wave of silence swept across the room. Diners stopped eating. The waitstaff froze in place. Even the distant, dulcet piano notes suddenly ceased. Jasmine froze. She could not believe what had just occurred. The cold frosting clung to her flushed skin, sliding from her face down to her collar and staining the carefully chosen silk dress. Her hands trembled, not from the chill, but from the crushing humiliation, pain, and betrayal that she had never imagined. Ryan exhaled sharply, as if he too had not foreseen his own action. But it was too late. Jasmine lifted her eyes to meet Ryan's. In that fleeting moment, she saw in his gaze a strange emptiness, a pain so pent up that it had burst forth uncontrollably. No one around dared to breathe loudly. Some fumbled for their phones, though it seemed no one had the courage to actually record or take a picture. Jasmine blinked, feeling the sting of betrayal welling up in her eyes. But she refused to cry. Not here. Not before the dozens watching her as if she were pitiable. Taking a deep breath, she slowly raised her hand and gently wiped the frosting from her cheek. "Dear, are you all right?" asked a waiter at last, his voice filled with concern. Jasmine wanted to say she was fine, that this was nothing. But the truth was, she wasn't fine. She had never felt so deeply wounded before. Ryan remained seated, his hands clenching into fists. It seemed even he hadn't fully digested what he'd done. Jasmine stood up. Every movement was slow and deliberate. She did not want anyone to notice her trembling legs. "Thank you," she said softly to the waiter, her tone eerily calm. Then she turned to Ryan. "You've gone too far." It was not an accusation or a shout. It was a simple, gentle statement carrying profound sorrow. With that, Jasmine turned and walked away. She left the restaurant, abandoning Ryan amid the stunned gazes and hushed murmurs of those around them. Only after Jasmine's silhouette disappeared did Ryan realize this moment might have changed everything forever. Jasmine sat there, staring intently at the ring on her finger as the shimmering lights reflected off the glass table. Around her, the luxurious restaurant continued bustling with the clatter of cutlery on fine porcelain and the hum of glamorous conversation. Yet in that moment, everything felt stifled, condensed into a private space shared only by her and Ryan. Across from her, Ryan sat waiting for her reaction. He appeared confident, as if he had anticipated what would happen. But Jasmine neither shouted nor burst into tears, nor did anything he might have predicted. Instead, she simply lifted her head, slowly took a tissue, gently dabbed her face, and placed it on the table with a soft sound. That simple action carried immeasurable strength. "Could you bring me another piece of cake?" Jasmine asked the nearby waiter in an almost unnervingly composed tone. "One piece for me and one for my lawyer." In that moment, the entire restaurant fell silent. For a second, then two, someone chuckled quietly. Soon, applause broke out, spreading throughout the room. The surrounding diners, even if they did not understand the full story, could sense the subtle finesse in the way Jasmine confronted betrayal. The clapping grew, resounding like a declaration of self-respect, a testament to how a woman could maintain her dignity even when her heart was shattered. Ryan sat there motionless. His initial confidence had evaporated, replaced by shock clearly visible on his face. He had never expected Jasmine to react this way. He had anticipated tears, or an explosion of anger that he could then use as an excuse to justify his actions. But no, she denied him that luxury. She didn't need to make a scene or shout to prove that she was hurt. She simply stated one thing: she would not accept disrespect. A waiter nodded and left as those around them continued murmuring. Some women at nearby tables looked at Jasmine with admiration, while some men seemed to ponder their own lives. Ryan swallowed hard, trying to regain his composure. "Jasmine, you really didn't have to do that," he said. Jasmine tilted her head, her eyes clear yet icy. "What do you mean by that?" she asked. "Call a lawyer. I know you think I didn't mean to hurt you," Ryan replied, his voice low and heavy with pent-up frustration. Jasmine sneered a bitter laugh. "Do you think I'm joking? Ryan, do you really expect me to sit here and eat cake with you as if nothing happened?" Ryan's throat tightened. He was not used to being forced into a passive position. He had always been the one in control, the one who set the rules. But this time, Jasmine was not playing by his rules. "Can't we discuss this at home?" he asked in a lowered tone, trying to salvage some dignity. Jasmine met his gaze steadily. "No, Ryan, we no longer have a home. Could you bring me another piece of cake?" Jasmine asked the nearby waiter in an almost unnervingly composed tone. "One piece for me and one for my lawyer." In that moment, the entire restaurant fell silent. For a second, then two, someone chuckled quietly. Soon, applause broke out, spreading throughout the room. The surrounding diners, even if they did not understand the full story, could sense the subtle finesse in the way Jasmine confronted betrayal. The clapping grew, resounding like a declaration of self-respect, a testament to how a woman could maintain her dignity even when her heart was shattered. Ryan sat there motionless. His initial confidence had evaporated, replaced by shock clearly visible on his face. He had never expected Jasmine to react this way. He had anticipated tears, or an explosion of anger that he could then use as an excuse to justify his actions. But no, she denied him that luxury. She didn't need to make a scene or shout to prove that she was hurt. She simply stated one thing: she would not accept disrespect. A waiter nodded and left as those around them continued murmuring. Some women at nearby tables looked at Jasmine with admiration, while some men seemed to ponder their own lives. Ryan swallowed hard, trying to regain his composure. "Jasmine, you really didn't have to do that," he said. Jasmine tilted her head, her eyes clear yet icy. "What do you mean by that?" she asked. "Call a lawyer. I know you think I didn't mean to hurt you," Ryan replied, his voice low and heavy with pent-up frustration. Jasmine sneered a bitter laugh. "Do you think I'm joking? Ryan, do you really expect me to sit here and eat cake with you as if nothing happened?" Ryan's throat tightened. He was not used to being forced into a passive position. He had always been the one in control, the one who set the rules. But this time, Jasmine was not playing by his rules. "Can't we discuss this at home?" he asked in a lowered tone, trying to salvage some dignity. Jasmine met his gaze steadily. "No, Ryan, we no longer have a home." Those words struck Ryan like a knife through his heart. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words emerged. She was serious. The waiter returned with 2 pieces of cake. Jasmine offered a gentle smile as she took one piece and slid the other across the table. "Would you like a piece? I'm sure you'll need the energy for what's coming." Ryan felt his palms grow cold. This was not the scenario he had prepared for. He had expected Jasmine to be weak, to beg, or at least to erupt in anger. But instead, she simply left him in a manner he couldn't counter. Dinah, the diners, continued watching the unfolding drama. A middle-aged woman nearby nodded approvingly, whispering to her husband, "She is truly strong." Jasmine then took out her phone and quickly sent a message. "My lawyer will contact you tomorrow." Ryan's heart raced. He wanted to say something, to salvage the situation, but his words were trapped in his throat. Jasmine had made her decision, and nothing could change that now. She stood, adjusted her dress, and gathered her handbag. Before leaving, she looked at him one last time, without hatred, without anger, only with a calm, resolute determination. "Have a pleasant evening, Ryan." Then she left, leaving him sitting there amid a lavish restaurant that now felt emptier than ever. Ryan remained motionless, a chill running down his spine. The murmurs persisted, and the gazes of others followed him. But more importantly, he knew that he had lost Jasmine, not just as his partner, but as the strongest, most remarkable woman he had ever known. He bowed his head and looked down at the slice of cake before him. It was beautiful and elegant, yet it had lost all meaning, just like the relationship between him and Jasmine now. For the first time in his life, Ryan felt a terrifying emptiness. Jasmine stepped out of the restaurant, her legs heavy, yet her heart feeling lighter than ever. Not because she was happy, but because she knew she had made the right decision. The atmosphere outside was slightly chilly, her exhaled breath forming thin wisps of vapor. The streetlights cast her silhouette, a lone yet resolute figure. Ryan still sat there, his eyes vacant as he watched Jasmine's figure recede into the distance. A surge of shame welled up in his chest. He knew he had made a mistake, but the most painful part was that he could not control himself. Insecurity and baseless jealousy had been gnawing at him for who knows how long. In haste, he took out his phone, his trembling fingers typing, "My love, come home, we need to talk." Jasmine's phone rang just as she was opening the car door. She saw the message from Ryan, but this time her heart did not ache as it once did. She was too tired of the endless apologies and of wounds that had yet to heal being torn open again. She closed her eyes, rested her head against the car seat, took a deep breath, and sighed. Jasmine did not reply immediately. Instead, she scrolled through her contacts and found Monica's number, her dearest friend, who had always been there for her when needed. She pressed call. "I need a place to stay tonight," Jasmine said calmly, without tremor or weakness, just a steady resolve. On the other end, Monica immediately responded without hesitation. "My couch is yours. Do you want tequila or ice cream?" Jasmine chuckled, a soft smile filled with gratitude. Both. She did not go back home. Instead, she drove straight to Monica's apartment. When she arrived, her friend greeted her with a tight hug. No words were needed. That embrace provided Jasmine with the warmth she so desperately required. Monica led Jasmine to the couch and handed her a glass of tequila, along with a box of chocolate ice cream. "Now, tell me what happened." Monica about dinner, about how Ryan had once again let suspicion and control override the love between them. She recounted the look in his eyes as she got up to leave, and the emptiness mingled with determination she felt as she walked away. "I can't continue like this, Mon. I can't keep forgiving the same mistake," she said softly. "I loved him so much, but I've come to realize that love isn't just about one person trying." Monica nodded, her eyes filled with empathy. "You deserve a love without doubt." Jasmine fell silent, staring at the tequila in her hand. She knew Monica was right. She knew she was worth more. What pained her most was that she once believed Ryan understood that too. Her phone rang again, this time a call from Ryan. Jasmine stared at the screen, hesitated for a few seconds, then decided not to answer. She placed the phone on the table, affirming to herself that tonight she would not let herself be swayed. Monica patted her shoulder and, taking control of the remote, started playing a cheesy romantic comedy. Nothing heals a broken heart like a bit of tequila in a sappy movie. Jasmine laughed softly, feeling some of the tension melt away. She nodded, grabbed a spoon, and took a bite of ice cream. As the movie began, she told herself that no matter what tomorrow brought, she wouldn't regret her decision tonight. The next morning, as the sunlight streamed through Monica's living room window, Jasmine woke feeling a sense of relief. For the first time in a long while, she did not wake with fear or a heavy heart. She stretched, got up, and walked into the kitchen. Monica was already up, making coffee. Her friend smiled warmly. "Good morning, strong girl. Coffee or tea?" Jasmine smiled. "Coffee and lots of milk." Holding the warm cup in her hands, she felt as though she were grasping a new beginning, a new day, a new opportunity to find herself again. She then checked her phone and saw a slew of messages from Ryan. Apologies, promises, and even frantic texts. But Jasmine no longer felt her heart racing as before. She no longer felt an urgent need to reply. She knew that if he truly wanted to change, it would be his own journey. She couldn't and shouldn't be the one burdened with his fear. Monica placed a hand on her shoulder and said softly, "You can love someone completely, but that doesn't mean you have to suffer everything because of them." Jasmine nodded, this time with a more confident smile. She knew this was the first step on her path to rediscovering herself. A fateful morning. Jasmine awoke with an emptiness in her heart. The morning light filtered through the window's curtain, yet it couldn't dissipate the heaviness in her soul. Last night, she had thought deeply. Her marriage with Ryan was no longer a home. It was a place full of unhealed wounds. She could no longer deceive herself or continue to endure. Today, she would officially begin the journey to end this marriage. Rising from bed, Jasmine walked into the bathroom and gazed into the mirror. Her face looked pale, and her eyes were puffy from the tears that had fallen all night. But deep within those eyes burned a fierce determination. She was no longer the fragile girl of old. She knew she deserved a better life. She opened her wardrobe and chose a dress that was both elegant and strong. Navy blue, a color of calm and authority. Today, she was going to meet her lawyer Camille, who would help her put an end to this marriage. Camille was a formidable, sharp, and experienced woman known for handling complex divorces. Her office was located on a high floor in a luxurious glass building, offering a view of the bustling city below. Jasmine entered with a mix of nerves and resolve. Camille looked her over from head to toe, then smiled softly, as if she were all too familiar with women arriving with eyes that spoke of having endured enough and no longer willing to tolerate more. Camille invited Jasmine to sit and began reviewing the file that her assistant had prepared. "Tell me everything," Camille said in a calm yet clear voice. Jasmine took a deep breath and began recounting the early years of her marriage, when Ryan had been a warm, passionate man. But then, everything had changed. She spoke of the times he belittled her, when she felt she was never good enough. She recounted the moments when Ryan would publicly criticize her, the times he controlled every decision, from her work to the clothes she wore. Flipping through the documents, Camille looked directly into Jasmine's eyes. "Based on what you're telling me, this isn't the first time Ryan has made you feel small, is it?" Jasmine felt her throat tighten. She had never thought of it that way, but Camille was right. She had endured too much, had shrunk herself for too long. She once thought these were mere trivialities, but in reality, they had slowly eroded her confidence and self-respect. "No," Jasmine admitted. "This isn't the first time." Camille nodded. "Then don't let it continue." Without hesitation, Camille handed Jasmine a pen. A divorce petition was already prepared. Jasmine looked down at the cold printed words. For years, she had tried to salvage and change herself to suit Ryan, but now she realized that love alone was not enough. A marriage needs respect, and Ryan no longer provided that. Jasmine took another deep breath and signed her name. In that moment, she felt as though an enormous weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Ryan could not accept the loss of Jasmine. When he learned that she had signed the divorce petition, he was shocked, enraged, and immediately sought to see her. That night, Jasmine was at Monica's, a temporary refuge after leaving the apartment she once shared with Ryan. She had just poured herself a glass of wine when the doorbell rang repeatedly. Monica glanced at Jasmine as if to ask whether she should answer. Jasmine sighed. "Answer it, we both know who it is." The door swung open, and Ryan practically lunged forward. He looked disheveled, his eyes wild with confusion. "Jasmine, what are you doing? You can't do this to me." Jasmine maintained her composure, standing tall before him. "Ryan, it's over." Ryan shook his head and advanced, his tone urgent. "You can't just leave like that. We've been together for years. Don't you remember the good times?" Jasmine closed her eyes for a moment, then met his gaze steadily. "Love isn't enough, Ryan. Respect matters." Ryan's eyes widened as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "I love you, Jasmine. I truly love you." Jasmine offered a sad smile. "You love me the way you do, Ryan, but it isn't the love I need." Ryan was at a loss for words. Silence enveloped the room. Jasmine was no longer the trembling girl who once cowered before his criticisms. She had changed. She was strong enough now to let go. Ryan looked at her one last time, his eyes filled with despair. But Jasmine did not falter. She knew this was the right thing to do. She had spent too many years waiting to understand that, and now nothing would stop her. After Ryan left, Monica gently placed a hand on Jasmine's shoulder. "Are you all right?" Jasmine smiled, a smile that was lighter than ever before. "For the first time in years, I feel truly okay." She turned back to the table, raised her glass, and looked out the window. The city still glimmered with lights, and life went on, and she knew that a new chapter in her life was beginning. A chapter that she would write herself. Ryan felt his breath quicken. His heart pounded as he looked into Jasmine's eyes. Those eyes that had once been gentle and filled with love for him now held only distance and disappointment. Her hand was clenched tightly around the door handle, as if she were trying to steady herself before uttering her final words. "I just lost my temper. I was sad. I didn't mean it." Ryan tried to explain, his voice trembling, as if even he could not believe the words he was saying. But the truth was, he had done it. He had let anger control him, allowed his impulsive emotions to drive him to a point of no return. Jasmine stood unmoving, her face devoid of any emotion, and it was that serene indifference that made Ryan feel more suffocated than ever. She offered a bitter smile, a smile that held no joy, only the harsh acceptance of reality. "You did mean it, Ryan, and that's the problem." Her voice was soft, yet each word cut into him like a knife. Ryan opened his mouth to retort, but then fell silent. He knew she was right. He couldn't deny the truth or dismiss what he had done. Taking a step toward him, Jasmine's gaze was no longer that of the woman he once loved, but of someone who had let go. "You threw it in my face, literally," she said. Ryan shuddered. The image flashed vividly in his mind. The shattered glass of the broken wine glass scattered across the floor. The distraught look on Jasmine's face as she instinctively recoiled. He hadn't meant for it to happen, but it no longer mattered. It had already happened. She did not cry or scream. She simply stared at him with empty eyes, as if he had become a stranger. That realization frightened him more than anything. Ryan had once believed that if they broke up, there would be tears, accusations, and heartbreaking regrets. But now, there was only silence and a definitive end. He longed to drop to his knees, to take her hand, to beg for another chance. Yet his rational mind told him it was useless. Jasmine was no longer the woman who would soften at his apologies. She had endured enough, and now she only wanted to leave. Ryan remained motionless, watching as Jasmine pulled her suitcase toward the door. Every step she took felt like a cut to his heart. When the door opened, a cold gust of wind swept into the apartment, carrying with it a sense of emptiness and bone-deep chill. Jasmine turned back to look at him one last time, not to offer comfort or cling to the past, but merely to confirm that she was ready to move on. With no lingering attachment, she closed the door. That sound echoed in the stillness like an unalterable full stop. Ryan stood there, feeling as if his entire world had crumbled. He wanted to run after her, to tell her he would change, that he would never let this happen again. But his legs refused to move, because he knew it was too late. Jasmine was gone, and she would not return. Jasmine stood on the balcony of a luxurious downtown apartment, a hot cup of coffee warming her hands. The morning light streamed through the wide glass windows, illuminating her face with a vibrant glow. 4 years had passed since the day she decided to leave her painful past behind and start anew. 4 years of perseverance, relentless effort, and now she had achieved success she once thought impossible. After leaving a marriage full of wounds, Jasmine not only rediscovered herself, but also built a solid future with her own hands and mind. She focused on developing her natural cosmetics brand, a dream she had long harbored but never had the chance to pursue. The early days were far from easy. She had lost everything in a misguided investment, spent countless sleepless nights worrying about sales, and felt so lonely that she almost wanted to return to her old life. But she didn't. Instead, she pressed on. Her brand gradually gained recognition. What began as a small boutique blossomed into a chain spanning major cities. Jasmine not only became a successful businesswoman, but also a symbol of independence, strength, and resilience. She not only built an empire, but she also inspired thousands of other women, those who once believed they lacked the power to change their lives. Jasmine started to enjoy life in a way she had never experienced before. She made time to travel and explore the world, from the ancient streets of Paris to the azure shores of Santorini, immersing herself in new experiences, meeting new people, and discovering diverse cultures. Each journey deepened her appreciation for the freedom she had earned, a freedom that was not just physical, but spiritual as well. On a business trip to New York, she met Daniel. He wasn't a man who fit everyone's ideal of perfection, but he was someone Jasmine never thought she'd meet. A man who understood, cherished, and respected her in the way she deserved. There were no empty promises, no binding conditions. Daniel loved her for who she truly was, scars and all, and for the dreams she held for the future. Daniel was a writer, a man with a deep soul and a simple yet meaningful way of living. He didn't try to change her, nor impose unreasonable rules or expectations. Instead, he stood by her side, listened, and supported her. That made Jasmine feel relieved and happy, a feeling she had never known in the past. One evening, Jasmine returned to the city where she had once lived, the place where it all began, and where she had once left with a broken heart. Along with a group of close friends, she decided to visit an old restaurant, the very one she used to frequent with her ex-husband. When she stepped inside, the space felt as familiar as ever, yet her inner feelings had completely transformed. There was no more pain, no more resentment, only the serenity and joy of the present. The waiter recognized her, smiled and said, "We've added a new dessert to the menu. Chocolate cake of empowerment, inspired by you." Jasmine laughed, a genuine, unburdened laugh that, for the first time in a long while, made her feel truly free. That dessert wasn't just a dish, it was a symbol of the journey she had traversed. From a woman trapped by control to a strong, confident, independent woman. She raised her glass, looked at the friends gathered around her, and beamed. She had won, not by seeking revenge, but by living the life she had always dreamed of. Life isn't always easy, but Jasmine had learned that true strength lies not in clinging to the past or trying to change others, but in knowing when to let go, in loving oneself, and in continually moving forward. And now, she wasn't just living, she was living more fully than ever before. Jasmine sat in her favorite cafe, the one she used to visit every weekend to read books and enjoy the peaceful ambiance. The chocolate cake before her remained untouched, exuding a sweet aroma. She picked up her fork and took a small bite, savoring the melting flavor on her tongue. A pleasant sensation spread through her, not from the sweetness of the cake, but from the relief in her heart. Suddenly, her phone rang. Jasmine looked down at the screen, and the name that appeared surprised her. Ryan. The message was brief, just a few words. "I'm sorry. I hope you're happy." Jasmine stared at those words for a long moment. How many times had she waited for an apology from him? How many nights had she wondered if Ryan was truly remorseful? But now, as it appeared, it no longer stirred her heart. She gave a slight smile, yet did not reply. She had closed that chapter, not in pain or hatred, but with maturity and self-awareness. Daniel, her close friend, sat across from her. He observed Jasmine, noticing the momentary silence as she read the message. He raised his coffee cup, his warm eyes fixed on her, and said, "What are you thinking about?" Jasmine put her phone down, smiled gently, and raised her own cup, lightly clinking it against Daniel's. "Just thinking about the journey I've been on and the value of myself." She no longer needed validation from the past. She had found peace within herself. Jasmine's journey had not been easy. She had once loved Ryan with all her heart, believing that love could overcome every challenge. But Ryan had betrayed her, choosing a path he deemed better and leaving Jasmine in pain and confusion. In the months that followed, she wrestled with unanswered questions. What did I do wrong? Am I not good enough? Yet, time and self-awareness helped her understand one crucial truth. A person's value does not lie in how others treat them, but in how they treat themselves. Jasmine did not seek revenge. She did not want to prove to Ryan that she had risen above him or flaunt a better life just to make him regret his choices. She simply wanted to live better because she knew she deserved it. She focused on her work and the dreams she had once forgotten. She traveled, met new people, and experienced things she had never imagined before. She learned to love herself, set boundaries, and refused to let anyone hurt her again. And now, When Ryan sent that apology message, it no longer mattered. Not because she didn't need an apology, but because she had healed on her own. The final lesson Jasmine learned was, the best revenge is not revenge at all. It is to become better. And ultimately, the sweetest victory is to know your own worth. Have you ever experienced a situation similar to Jasmine's? Do you believe that maturity and self-awareness are the best forms of revenge? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you find this story meaningful, don't forget to like and share to spread this positive message to more people. Thank you for reading to the end.